There's only one father and son pair that teach at the college, members of this faculty. The other one we know fondly as Terry the Younger, or Terry the Nimble. Since he assumed the bench, we started calling him Terry the Honorable. This Terry is older and he's not so nimble. And further, the affiant saith not.
Any of you who know me will doubt my first comment, but I am here, me, Terry MacCarthy from Chicago, to evangelize. I'm here to proselytize. I want to start saving souls all of a sudden. Huh? I haven't been in a church in how many years, but I want to save your souls, okay? And this is what it's all about. Most of you, if you want to be honest with yourself, which is not a bad thing to do once in a while, you're not very good cross-examiners. As a matter of fact, you probably don't look forward to cross-examination. And there's good reason why you shouldn't look forward to cross-examination. And the good reason is because you're no good. Putting it more succinctly, not only are you no good, but you've got a reason for being no good. And I'm going to share with you that reason, okay? The reason you are no good is because you've never been properly taught how to cross-examine. Your source of cross-examination, the people who have taught you, they didn't know what the hell they were teaching you, and it reflects in what you're doing today, okay? Well, where did you learn everything you know about cross-examination? Well, first of all, you probably learned some of it in law school. Who taught it in law school? An evidence teacher. Evidence teachers and prosecutors are the biggest destroyers of trial advocacy in this group, okay? Those two have done more to ruin trial advocacy than anything. This institute here, by the way, is trying to offset that a little bit and doing a hell of a good job. Speaking of a hell of a good job, I divert. I'm allowed to do that at my age. But I got to tell you, I have been teaching, believe it or not, at this institute since it was opened in Texas, okay? And I've taught every single year but one. One, I medically was not allowed to get on an airplane, and I didn't teach that year. But every other year, I've taught here, right? I just witnessed 2 back-to-back opening statements. I got to tell you, those were collectively the 2 best opening statements I have ever seen at the college. And that's saying a lot, considering the talent that we have in the faculty at this college, okay? Back to cross-examination. Who else taught you how to cross-examine? Criminal defense lawyers. We're the ones that do the cross-examination. Persecutors do the boring direct, and we do the exciting cross. And so you were taught, as I was, by criminal defense lawyers, how to cross-examine. And the philosophy, when I was growing up, was rather simple. You want to be a cross-examiner, young lady? You get in there and you attack, pillage, and plunder. You leave no prisoners. You're a mean SOB. And that's what they taught us. And then we were told that we could read about cross-examination. There was indeed a Bible of cross-examination. The Bible was a book written in 1904. That's even before I was born, okay? And it was written by a very good New York lawyer, and he wrote a book entitled The Art of Cross-Examination. How many, just my own curiosity, how many of you have ever read the book, The Art of Cross-Examination? Not many, which is just as well. Because when you go back, if you have, not many, if you have a cold day and you got a fireplace, that's where that book belongs. It's an interesting book historically, although the facts in several of his stories are grossly inaccurate. But besides that, but it's not going to teach you anything about cross. And yet, that's the Bible of cross-examination. 1972 comes along, and there's suddenly a resurgence, and a young law professor gets up by name Irving Younger. And Irving Younger, at the first NETA program out in Boulder, Colorado, he delivers a lecture, which to this day is probably the most popular CLE lecture ever given. The lecture is called The 10 Commandments of Cross-Examination. How many of you have heard, I'm sure most of you have heard the 10 Commandments of Cross-Examination. By the way, I should preface this by telling you, Irv Younger was a friend. I knew Irv well. I ate with him several times. We exchanged information. I was the only one he gave all of his, 13 hours of trial advocacy lecture. And back in those days, I hate to tell you, I'm old now, but they weren't in little round things like that, or even square things. They were in big things like this, big things. And we still have them in our office. We have those that he gave us. We have the only set, certainly, in the Middle West. And I liked her. And Irv was a great inspiration when NETA was starting. And this will shock you when you think of it. This was the start of teaching trial advocacy. Up until that point in history, nobody had ever attempted to teach trial advocacy. And don't tell me like that pigeon-headed Warren Berger that the Brits were doing. The Brits, my ass. They just started about 4 years ago doing some real teaching of trial advocacy, okay? But it wasn't being done. And here was Irv Younger before a group of, I'm sure not as good as this because of what you people do, but a group of young lawyers. And I will say that Irv was a phenomenal inspiration to tell people to try and be trial lawyers. He did that as well as anybody. He was brilliant. But there was a problem. And the problem was Irv Younger wasn't like you. Irv Younger was not a trial lawyer, okay? And not being a trial lawyer, he was an evidence teacher, and a pretty good one, but not being a trial lawyer, Irv Younger didn't know squat about cross-examination. And so the 10 Commandments across, most of them are just dead bang wrong. And a couple of them make some sense, but he didn't understand what that sense was very well, okay? So this is what we had. That was the New Testament. We had a Bible, we had a New Testament, we had those old criminal defense lawyers, almost all men in those days. And that's from whence you learned. That's your background on cross-examination, okay? And against that background, you have a legitimate excuse for not knowing much about cross-examination. So I'll give you the benefit of that. I'm going to try and now, as I said, proselytize you and change you and give you some different thoughts, different ideas on cross-examination. By the way, of some interest, where did these different thoughts start? Where were they conceived? Where were they born? They weren't born in a courtroom, I will admit to you. They were conceived and then born right here at this college. With this wonderful faculty that you have around here, they were born right here. This is where I got started and learned for the first time myself. And by the way, up until that time, I had tried many cases, of course, and I was one of the leading causes of overcrowding federal penitentiaries. I was using what I was taught by the deans of the criminal defense bar and what I had read in the Bible and New Testament across examination. And suddenly, here, of all people, me, I get this vision down here working with bright people like yourself, okay? So anyway, what I want to do now is share with you a system and a style of cross-examination. Complete system, complete style, a turnkey operation, if you will. You can take this back to South Jesus, Kansas, or wherever the hell it is, and you can use it. And it works for any and all witnesses, not just for a certain kind of witness or any of that bull crap. It works for everybody, okay? And I want to share that system with you. You want to be a great cross-examiner? Here you go, young lady. 3 things. There's always 3 things. Rest of your life. Never 4. By the way, did you notice in those 2 openings? Yeah. Did you notice it? The number of times those 2 wonderful young lawyers used trilogies. Oh, that just sounds good to the ears, you know. So anyway, they used them, but three things that you must do if you want to be a great cross-examiner. You want to challenge yourself to be a great cross-examiner. And here they go. Number 1, this one is going to be simple for some of you, a little more difficult for others of you. That's an in-house joke, by the way. But all I want you to do is look good. Look good. Is that relatively a simple request? I want you to look good when you get up to cross-examine. Why do I want you to look good? Because we always got to keep our eye on the target, what we're doing. If you want to be a trial lawyer, you must become a communicator. You saw some just incredible communicative ability in those 2 opening statements. That's what you got to learn. Be a trial lawyer, a communicator. Oh, well, Terry, wait a minute now. To be a trial lawyer, don't we have to know evidence? Not really. Well, hell, most judges don't know evidence. Why the hell do you have to know it, okay? Oh, sure. It helps to know evidence. It helps. But the big thing is learn to do what you just saw. Learn to become a communicator. And being a communicator, you want the people to whom you're communicating to like you. Wouldn't that be a nice idea if they liked you? By the way, we have one difficult time trying to get them to like Johnny, who we represent over there, you know, the guy whose knuckles drag on the ground when he walks in. He's a mouth breather. Did Dale leave? I think Dale left. I was going to pick on Dale if he was still here. Is he here? No. I thought he was. His mother-in-law passed away, so he didn't go back. I love to pick on Dale. He's easy to pick on. But anyway, the people we represent, they're not easy to get the, it's not easy for us to get the jury to like them, okay? But they've got to like you. If they don't like you and you're going into the closing argument and that jury just doesn't like you at all, you might consider a plea of some sort, because you're not going to win the case. Matter of fact, we did voir dire, whatever the hell you want to call it, yesterday. And everybody says, oh, voir dire, that's when we pick our jury, right? Oh, bullshit, pick the jury. You don't really pick the jury in voir dire, but I'll tell you what does happen in voir dire. The jury picks a lawyer. And it's either going to be you or that persecutor over there, and the jury picks a lawyer, and they pick them on what basis of if they like them or not, okay? So you must acquire what I call, now, if you want to be a Greek philosopher, you can call it ethos. Isn't that a big word? Holy shit. Most of us don't know what that means anyway, but to hell with ethos. I don't like that term anyway. I want you to get the halo effect. I want you to get the halo effect. I want the jury to like you. And the jury is not going to like you if you come on like a Russian tank, you know, with the rah, 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 and all that shit. Okay? They're not going to like you. They're not going to respect you. And so we definitely want to look good. We want to persuade the jury. And the only way you persuade them is by getting them to like you. So number one, look good, away from the attack, pillage, plunder bullshit, okay? Number two, critically important, oh my golly, does this fit in with everything else you have already and will continue to learn here at the college? I want you, when you get up to cross-examine, to tell a story. I'm gonna guess 15 years ago, trial lawyers, teachers of trial, finally got into this notion that, hey, you know what? We should be telling stories as trial lawyers. And I will tell you unequivocally that every great or near great trial lawyer I have ever met is a consummate storyteller. You just saw some wonderful storytelling right there. So you've got to tell a story. Well, okay, that was done in the context of the opening statement, but you must now do it in the context of cross-examination as well. You will tell stories, believe it or not, in cross-examination, okay? And this gets us into this wonderful thing of communication, which is what it's all about. You will become communicators when you tell the story. And when you do it, well, I got a couple little things in there, but I'm going to drop them because I want to get into the context of cross. But what do I want to disabuse you of here is this notion you came out of law school with. Oh, law school does some good stuff, but boy, law school doesn't help us become trial lawyers. Why? Well, number one, some of the professors in law school, what do they tell you all the time? Speak like a lawyer. Oh shit, speak like a lawyer. You don't speak like a lawyer in a courtroom. God almighty, that's the worst thing you can do. You know, by the way, I don't know how many of you know this or that, but the average person doesn't like lawyers. We're right below sneeze screens in the list of things that people dislike. And now I want you to get up and speak like a lawyer. No, we don't want to. You gotta get away from this concept of giving briefs. You went all through law school giving briefs, and now young lawyers get up to try cases, and they don't want to tell stories, they want to give briefs, and that is horrible. It's the worst thing you could do. Oh, yes, and Mr. Jones broke his leg in the accident. Mr. Jones broke his leg in the accident. That's a mouthful of crap. I want you to become a real lawyer. And it was no, it depends if you're a plaintiff. This is civil, but that's all right. A plaintiff or the defendant in the case, but then it's not going to be an accident. It's going to be a terrible collision, or, well, if you're defending it, be an accident, I guess. But in this, there was a terrible collision. These two cars crashed into each other. The red car went right into the side of the green car. The green car all but exploded. And hanging out the driver's door, the green car, was Mr. Jones. And he was barely hanging there. And you could see his leg. And his leg was shattered. You could see the bones coming out below. You could see the blood and so on and so forth. Yeah, let's paint a picture. That's what we do. We tell stories. We paint pictures. And paint a picture. Not, he broke his leg. None of that shit. That's out with starched underwear. We've got to paint pictures and deliver the message that we want to deliver, okay? Let me just take a little aside here. If you were to go into a courtroom today, most courtrooms, or watch court TV to the extent we have it, and you were to walk in, you would see the cross-examination, and it would go down something like this, would it not? And there's perjury, Pete, right. You fit the term, don't you? But anyway, there's perjury, Pete. I pick on it for a reason. And now the cross-examination of perjury, Pete, okay? And here's what we see in the courtrooms today. You get up there with that vengeance, okay? You're going to attack. You're going to pillage. You're going to plunder. You have a snarl on your face. And you get up there and you look down at Pete and you go, rah, 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 rah. And not surprisingly, he doesn't like you very much either, okay? So what does he do? He looks back at you and he goes, well, rah-rah yourself. And then you again, rah-rah-rah-rah-rah. And he, rah-rah-rah. Usually your rah-rahs are a little bit longer than his rah-rahs. And that's what we see when we watch I tell you, I'll bet you, what, 80% of the cross-examinations done today by trial lawyers are done in that method, okay? The attack, pillage, plunder method. And that's the way, excuse me, that's the way they do them, okay? That is, I've given it a name. It doesn't have a name anyplace else, but what difference does it make? I call that dialogue cross-examination. Why dialogue? Because, stay there, okay. Dialogue, first I'm going to talk a little bit, and now it's going to be your turn to talk a little bit. Now I talk a little more, and now you talk a little bit more. Dialogue, cross-examination, with the tools available to you is not cross-examination. Well, Terry, when I go back to South Jesus, Kansas, how can I know, or will I know, if I'm involved in dialogue? It's easy. Dialogue cross-examination is always noted by arguing, bickering, quarreling with the witness. You know, you saw the car. No, I didn't see it. Well, you were standing 5 feet away. No, I didn't see the car. You had your glasses on. You had to see the car. No, I didn't see it. Hey, come on. That's bullshit. You have no reason to do that in cross-examination. You don't want to argue, bicker, and quarrel with witnesses. You're just moving yourself down to their level. Well, if cross-examination is not dialogue, what the hell is it? Very simple. Cross-examination will suddenly become a monologue. A monologue. There will be but one speaker, and that speaker will be you. You telling the story, of course, but the speaker will be you, and perjuring Pete over here will have no role other than a cameo role. He has to be there, but he's there simply to go, yes, yes, arf, 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 and that's all he is going to do. You will be the only speaker in cross. Well, how the hell do we do it? I'm going to show you that in a moment, and you'll be able to do it before you walk out of here, okay? But that's the idea. So we are going to get away from dialogue cross, and we're going to go to monologue cross-examination, where you are the only speaker. And stop and think of something else. I said you're going to be a storyteller. There can only be one storyteller. I don't want this dippo telling the story. I will tell the story, and not him, okay? Here's one that's going to shock you. Well, I'll ask you a question. You'll give me a good answer, I know that. And then I'll ask you a second question, and you will have embarrassed yourself, okay? You ready for it? Now, I'm going to get up on cross-examination. There he is. I'm going to get up, and I'm going to tell a story. To whom do you suppose I might want to tell the story? Anybody? Come on.
Jury.
The jury. Did you hear that? Everybody. They all said the jury. Yeah, right?
Yes.
Now watch this. Watch this. This is amazing. How many of you, when you cross-examine, talk directly to the jury? Raise your hands. I see a couple of hands up. A judge down here. You know how you raise your hands, don't you? One of my sections does, but if you're a judge, you get to raise your hands like this. If you're a trial lawyer, you raise them like this, you see. There's the difference, you see it? And have you ever gone out, young lady, for dinner or drinks with a judge? Have you? And remember when they brought the check at the end of the night, the judge would always say, oh, I got that check. But their arms would only go this far. Right? The trial lawyer reaches out and grabs the check, okay? So I've got some people that say they talk to the jury. Well, let me tell you my experiences, such as they are. 95% of the trial lawyers do not talk to the jury. They don't tell the story to the jury, and that's a tragic mistake. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Some years ago, probably a dozen years ago, give or take, I was doing a program with a few faculty members who were having a delightful dinner, and a very, very good criminal defense lawyer. As a matter of fact, one particularly noted for cross-examination. Looked at me and he says, Terry, I gotta tell you, he said, your system of cross-examination really works. And you know, after many years of practice, I've converted over to it. Well, to say the least, I started patting myself on the back and I said, wonderful, that's great news. But then, of course, he dropped the other shoe. And he said, but there's one thing you're teaching these young people which is wrong. Oh, Jesus, here it comes, right? You know what he said to me? He said, you're teaching them to tell to the jury, to tell their story to the jury. That's absolutely wrong. He said, when I cross-examine, I put on the blinders. The witness has the blinders on. And here we go. And it's all mano, right in here. Everything is right in here. I never look at the jury. Well, I gotta tell you, I respect very much this lawyer. And I started to wonder, could I possibly, for the first time in my life, have been wrong? I decided I better check this out. So I did. Oh, who am I gonna call? Am I gonna call my good friends and trial lawyers in here? No, because they'd have given me the same answer he was giving me. And I didn't want that answer. So I decided I'd call a couple of communicators. And I first called out, this was at least 12 years ago, maybe more, probably more. I called out first to New York, the mother court in New York. And I called a young, well, she's not so young, a lady by the name of Sonia Hamill. And unfortunately, I bet you, anybody in here ever hear of or know who Sonia Hamill is? I don't see any hands, judges or trial lawyers. Okay, that's interesting because if I was doing this 15, 20 years ago, the hands would have gone up. Sonia Hamill is not a lawyer. She's a communicator, and she teaches communications for trial lawyers. And she was the communications teacher for NITA. For years, she was the guru of NITA when it came to communications. She's written books on it. She was good. But in truth, I guess I have to confess, I have not seen Sonia Hamill's name mentioned for a dozen years, probably 15, maybe 20 years. But I called her. I said, Sonia, here's my problem. I gave her the issue and I said, which is correct? And she said, Terry, you're absolutely right. You should be talking and telling your story to the jury. Now, she had seen me do maybe 6 or 7 demonstrations, and she said, the way you do it is right. You tell the story to the jury, but you don't ignore Peter the perjurer. You go to him from time to time, and that's perfect, okay? And so I immediately knew she was a genius, and so I said, thank you. And then I hung up. And then I figured, well, I better go to the other coast, so I went to the West Coast. And I talked to Josh MacCarthy. And I'm sure many of you know who Josh is. For my money, there's nobody better at teaching communications than Josh MacCarthy. So I got Josh on the phone. Same question. Exactly the same answer. He said, oh no, Terry, he says, and lawyers don't do it. He said, you're right. They should be telling the story to the jury. Okay, and so now I decided that I was right all along. So I still don't have that negative on me, okay? But the interesting thing is, I can assure you that if we walk into any room tomorrow and you're cross-examining, you know how you're going to be doing it? Right in here, you dipshits. Right in here. Everything's going to be right in here. And you're not going to be talking. But the group I'm going to be with, I break them of that real easy. Oh, it's a simple thing. You know what I do? And by the way, it serves 2 purposes, not just one. If here's the lawyer up there, and he's right over here with perjury Pete, I go, I'm pretty big. I go and I stand right between he and the witness. The lawyer says, you can't see the witness. I said, that's the general idea. And so now he can't see the witness. Who has he got to talk to? he's got my wonderful little jury right here to talk to, and he will turn to the jury to talk, which is what I want, okay? But there's a secondary effect. I never realized this when I first started doing it. He will also, when he starts talking to the jury, he will bring down the octave of his presentation, and it will be far more appealing as a storyline to the jury when he brings it down and talks to them like people, like you just saw in the two opening statements, and he will do that. So tomorrow, challenge yourself. I'll bet not many of you, some raised their hands. There might be a little audacity in this room, but some of them raised their hands, but try and talk to the jury. You want to tell your story to the jury. You're not going to ignore him, okay? Well, you've been drilled on this since you got here, but when you're doing your cross-examination, it's the same as your opening statement, gang, in this sense. The concepts of primacy and recency, they are involved in everything you do as a trial lawyer, okay? They go back to the rhetorical forms of speech, and they're important, primacy and recency. Now, if you go to most of the NETA programs, the other trial ad programs that are out there, they will teach you the importance of primacy and recency. They'll teach them to you in the context of the opening statement. They will teach them to you in the context of the closing argument. But why in the world will they not teach them to you in the context of cross or direct examination? They won't do it. They won't teach you in there. Yeah, so instead of that, what do you start off your direct examination with? Anybody in here ever say this again, I will eat their firstborn. But you started off with, Miss Jones, would you please state your name for the record and spell your last name for the court? You know, that mouthful of shit. Oh my God, that went out with starched underwear, or should have, but still used. There's a law school in our city of Chicago that in the trial ad program, that's the way they teach them to do it. I couldn't believe it. State your last, oh, come on, that's a mouthful of shit. Shut up, you're not talking about direct, you're talking about cross here now, okay. But, yeah. And besides, when you do stuff like that, it gets you off where you want to be, doesn't it? Yes, and you just did here now. I don't remember where I was until I got diverted in there. I don't know if I can find where I was. Pardon me?
Primacy and recency.
Oh! You don't move. You stay very much. You stay right there. Primacy and recency. You gotta bring primacy into cross-examination and recency, I might add. Well, what am I talking about? Matter of fact, in Chicago, we had this occur within the last week in a weird way, but it occurred. Okay, here you go. I've got perjuring Pete on the stand. There he is. I'm going to start the cross-examination. What am I going to do? Slather him up and slather. Okay, hey, good to have you here. And, I don't have a lot of questions, and if you don't understand anything I say, and all that happy horseshit. The Duke study says that turns jurors off faster than anything, okay? So you gotta start as a professional, impactively, with something good, okay? So, what is it gonna be? Well, it might be, I look at her, maybe it's an eyewitness identification case, okay? We can agree it was dark out that night. Yeah, there it is, dark, that helps us, eyewitness, usually, right? Okay, we can agree it was dark. That's thematic primacy. That's thematic. I'm using one of the themes that you crafted and you have on your boards now. I'm using one of those themes, and I'm starting with something impactful on the cross-examination. Well, okay, anything other than thematic primacy? Oh boy, there sure is. We can also look at the list of the ways one can impeach a witness, and we will find some delightful primacy in that list. Here's the best primacy. you will ever have in your life. You've got it in some of these cases that you are going to be trying. There's perjuring Pete on the stand. What's the best thing out of my mouth to start this cross-examination? You'll never get anything better than this, and you will get it frequently. We can agree you're a convicted felon. What is better than that? There's nothing better than that. Oh, just a little felon, yeah, come on. But anyway, that's good. By the way, I don't want to give you the idea that's all you do. That takes 5 minutes to do that, but we're not going to do it. But at least and you may want to save that 5 minutes for later on the cross. But starting with, we can agree. Once they hear this guy's, of course, you could have done it in an opening statement and tell us, and you'll hear from him. He's a convicted felon, you know. But now we're cross-examining. This is what we are trying. Well, happens frequently in Illinois. We are trying one of our governors, former governors, in federal court, okay? And the prosecutor got up, bums, they've got my tapes. And they got up and they started to cross-examine him. Well, they didn't do it with the elegance that you could do it. Well, good. But they did start with the fact that he was a convicted felon. They combined it with something else. It didn't come off. Oh, it was good. And the paper just praised him. They said, that was brilliant, okay? But start off with primacy. And you say, yeah, but Terry, here's my witness, and he's not a convicted felon. So what? You're a convicted felon. Objection, Your Honor! Cautionary instruction. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you cannot consider him to be a convicted felon. If the ethics committee was here, I'd be gone. Right? You can't do that, but hey, I would. I mean, it's beautiful. I don't give a shit about cautionary instruction. Just let the jury hear it, okay? But, okay, he's not a convicted felon. I've got to go down, the list on impeachment, okay? So I'll go down it, but still with some pretty good stuff. How about a follow-up? Okay, so we can agree you're a liar. Can you do that? Of course you can. That's 608 impeachment. And it's beautiful, and we should do it. And if you got the guy being a liar, that's not bad primacy game. We can agree you're a liar. It's good shit, okay? But he's not a convicted felon. He's not a liar. But what is he? Well, how about this one? Moving down, there's a bunch of them we can use, but so it'd be fair to say you work for the government. That's motive, okay? That's motive. So, but start with something good right at the beginning. I don't know if I should take the time to do it because it's not critically important, but Irv Younger, in his 10 Commandments, one of his commandments is, I say end on a high note. You want to end on a high note. Always end on a high note, okay? Now, Irv Younger has a commandment that sounds like end on a high note. Anybody know what it is? What does he say when you're ending up a cross? Don't, oh boy, you were really impressed with this shit, weren't you? Don't ask the one question too many. Remember that? And you were impressed when you heard that, weren't you? And you said, boy, I'm going to be a great cross-examiner. I'm going to avoid the one question too many. But the problem was, he never told you how to know when you were getting to the one. Okay? As a matter of fact, all of his examples on the one question too many are horrible. They make no sense. What's the biggest one? I shouldn't do this. It's not critically important, but just to disabuse you of this thinking. What was this? The one was the nose bite off. Remember the nose bite off case? By the way, who was the attorney in the nose bite off case?
Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln, no less. So, what state did this occur in?
Illinois.
Illinois, by the lovely lakes and waters, Illinois. Okay, and now I share with you an unknown fact. Every state has a particular crime that's indigenous to the state. Illinois, it's nose bite offs. We have more nose bite-off cases in Illinois than the rest of the country put together. You walk down Michigan Avenue on a bright sunny day and look at the people and see all the angled noses. But by the way, those of you from Georgia that are here, okay, I don't want to hear you laughing, because I know what the biggest crime in Georgia would be. At least I know what it would be if animals could testify. But that struck me, didn't it? Yeah, right with it. But you remember the case now? Here's Honest Dave, okay? And he's up there and he's cross-examining, huh? And there he goes. I'm going to use you, Bruce, because you're there. And you look like, you look for somebody with the Lombrosian characteristics of the witness. And Bruce looks like a bird watcher. So anyway, he's now going to cross-examine the bird watcher, you know, and who was out there. And so Lincoln didn't do it this way, but I'm going to try and refine it just a little bit. So you were out in the field.
Yes, I was.
Yeah, and you were looking.
Yes, I was.
You were looking into the woods.
I was.
You were looking for birds.
I was.
That's why you were there.
Yes,
And you didn't look at those two gentlemen arguing over on the right.
I did not.
Okay, and you didn't see Jones bite off Smith's nose.
No.
Okay, and there you go, right? Now, the interesting thing is, Younger now screams at you, and he says, "You've done it! Sit down! Don't ask the one question too many." And he says, even the great Abraham Lincoln is going to screw up here. And Lincoln now looks at him. You'll all remember this. It will come back to you now to haunt you. And he looks at him and he says, "Well, if you didn't see him bite the nose off, how do you know he bit the nose off?" What was the answer?
Saw him spit it out.
"I saw him spit it out." Yeah. And see, and the Younger says, "Hey, that's it. Don't ever ask the one question too many," right? Oh, that's bullshit, Irv. It's good for an evidence teacher, but it's not good for us as trial lawyers. We need more than that. Why, Irv? Because assuming that he had ended and not asked the one question too many, the young prosecutor would now get up, and we call it redirect examination. And I can assure you that the dumbest persecutor in Illinois, there's great competition for that. The dumbest persecutor in Illinois is going to get up, and on redirect examination, what's he going to say? Well, Charlie, if you didn't see him bite it off, how do you know he bit it off? And now Charlie's going to say, because I saw him spit it out, right? In the first instance, Lincoln looked dumb. But in the second instance, what did Lincoln lose?
Credibility.
His credibility. The most important thing you've got as a trial lawyer, he lost that credibility. So that makes no sense. His other ones don't make any sense in that either. So start with primacy, end on a high note. Okay, real quickly, I will do this. I don't know, time is sort of a precious thing, and I don't want to keep you guys here all night, but what are the sources of your well, first of all, of course, Perjuring Pete is going to take the stand and direct, and he's going to say a few things. And I'm going to confess to you, when I was a young lawyer, you know how I prepared for my cross-examination? This is embarrassing, by the way. I'd sit there, and I'd listen to him on direct, and I'd take notes when he was giving his story on direct, okay? And then I'd use those notes for the basis of my cross. Well, that's horseshit. You can't do that. You've got to prepare the cross way before he ever gets up and testifies, okay? And you prepare it in the order you wanted it, with the things you wanted. But now, maybe he's going to say something on direct that might help you. Something you want to add it to what you've got. But you've got his direct, and that's always a source of information, of course. But what other sources do we have? Well, his statements. Almost inevitably, the witness has made a statement, and you have those statements available to you. You've got his statements. Those are a great source of information for cross. There's two other sources of information that we don't always think about. The second one is verisimilitude cross. Oh, that's a big word. Holy shit, why use a big word like that? Verisimilitude means basically the way things are, okay, or were, if you prefer, the way things are. Daryl Dantzler, you know, when she was younger and stayed sober more often, she came up with some brilliant stuff. And she came up with an article that to this day, I think, was one of the finest things ever done in cross-examination. It's why Johnny can't leave, is what she called it. Anybody ever hear of it or see it? Yeah, some of the old timers. It is, that's worth rereading. That's good shit. And she'd try and teach you to do cross by having you cross on what he's wearing, okay? Well, that, plain and simple, that was verisimilitude cross, the way things are, okay? And it's good. I could go on for 5 minutes right here. I'm not going to because of the time limitations, but I could go on for 5 minutes with any of you. And from 5 minutes, I can go on for 15. I'm just crossing you with the way things were or are, okay? I want to ask some questions of what you did on Wednesday afternoon. You understand?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, first of all, you went into a breakout group.
That's true.
And you had an instructor.
Correct.
There were other students in there.
Yes, sir.
And you were learning to do opening statements.
Yes.
And then you came into the big room.
Right.
And you were to see 2 opening statements.
True.
Demo opening statements
Yes.
by members of the faculty.
Yes.
Okay? And by the way, those were really good opening statements.
They were.
Yeah. And then you were to hear a lecture on cross-examination.
Yes.
A brilliant lecture. Okay. Now, what did I do? I just used verisimilitude, the way things were or are. And it's a good way to get them into the yes mode and get your cross going. So don't be afraid to use verisimilitude. It requires probably to go out and see whatever it was went down, but it's easy, so you can use verisimilitude. And the last one, and I dare say the best, is plausibility cross. And I'm going to suggest to you, I don't think most people talk about this, but I'm going to suggest to you that almost every witness will give you some plausibility cross that you can use. Plausibility. Verisimilitude, the way things were. Plausibility, the way the jury believes, what the jury believes, okay? That's what plausibility cross is. And so you can use, there's tons of plausibility cross in your cases, and use them. And when you use them, don't be afraid to milk them. Well, give us an example of plausibility. Yeah, I don't know if any of you read USA Today yesterday. USA Today yesterday. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know if any of you read it, but Associate Justice Thomas was highlighted in the article. Did any of you read that? Okay. Oh boy. But anyway, his confirmation hearings had a great example of plausibility cross. The problem, of course, was that the senators doing the examination had no earthly idea how the cross-examined it. But here it was. Let's see if you know. Okay, what did we learn about then Judge Thomas? Okay, we learned he had gone to law school. Now, in retrospect, that may surprise many of you. We learned that he had gone to law school. As a matter of fact, I know, Candace, but I have to say it, he went to that law school named after the lock, Yale or something, whatever the name of it is, okay? And he went to Yale Law School. And we learned that he graduated from Yale Law School in 1973. That was a year or two before, I think. Anyway, he graduated from Yale in 73. Well, there was something else that happened in 1970. Oh, Lyndon Johnson died on January 22nd, 1973. But something else happened. The Supreme Court came down with an opinion, same day, 22nd of January, and the opinion was probably one of the most far-reaching opinions of the Supreme Court. Anybody know what it was? You said, tell me. Roe v. Wade, yes. Roe v. Wade was decided by the United States Supreme Court in January when he was a senior at Yale Law School, okay? Now, one of the senators looked at him and said, did you ever, he used a shitty word we don't use, did you ever discuss Roe v. Wade with anybody? And he looked back and he said, no. Now, how could anybody in their right mind believe that answer? You know, I would have loved to follow up with a few things too. Well, you know, and there you go, Justice Thomas. Are you ready? Yeah, well, you were in law school then.
Yes.
Yeah, at Yale.
Right.
And in law school, you talk to the other students. You talk to professors.
Yeah.
You read opinions.
Yes.
And you particularly read the opinions of the United States Supreme Court.
Right.
Yeah, and you particularly talk to the professors about the major opinions of the Supreme Court.
Yes.
And you particularly talk to the other students about the major opinions of the United States Supreme Court. Yeah. And Roe v. Wade was decided in January of your senior year.
Yes.
Yes. And Roe v. Wade was probably one of the most important decisions ever to come down.
Yes.
Yeah, and there were students around you could talk to about it. And there were professors around there you could talk to about it.
Right.
And then, by the way, you eventually graduated from Yale.
Right.
And then you became a mover and shaker in one of the political parties. And they used to discuss these important issues.
Right.
And they particularly liked to discuss Roe v. Wade.
That's true.
But it's your story to this jury that you never talked to anybody about Roe v. Wade. I mean, come on, does anybody in this room believe that's true? Nobody would. But that's plausibility. You can milk that and have fun with that, gang. Now you say, oh, Terry, damn it, you're always picking on Republicans. Well, they give you a lot to pick on. You know, so anyway, but if you want one on the other side of the aisle, how about Bill Clinton? Huh? Yeah, I smoke marijuana, but I never inhaled. How many people believe that? And most of us probably like Bill Clinton, but we don't. Well, those are things I'm talking about. Your witnesses will give you a lot of that plausibility type, and when you get it, get into it, milk it, and draw it on out, okay? Okay, now, moving along, and which I should do. The next thing, so we're gonna look good, we're gonna tell stories, and we're going to tell stories with short statements, okay? You got it? Short statements. Now, short, when I say short, I mean short. Irv Younger says short, but Irv Younger shorts and my shorts are different shorts, okay? I mean short, okay? Now, everybody tells you to be short, nobody tells you why you should be short. I'm gonna tell you why you should be short. First reason you wanna be short, research. You know, we ignore this research done by usually communicators that would be helpful to us, to help us be a better lawyer. They did research on, they wanted to find out if the length of a question determined the length of an answer. And they used John F. Kennedy's press conferences, and they concluded about 4 years of research, by the way, and they came out with the conclusion that yes, it does, not always, but the length of a question, well, go back and read your damn transcripts and you'll see this, okay? We could have saved them all the money by giving them the transcripts, okay? So that's one reason. We want to be short because if we're short, the witness will be short, and we want the witness short, okay? Second, we want to avoid, and I apologize to you from Los Angeles, but what I call the Los Angeles syndrome. Los Angeles lawyers, they were vaccinated with Victrola needles, and they talked incessantly on direct or cross-examination. And if you ever see a lawyer get up and do a cross-examination like this, by the way, remember these facts, because I'm going to use them for what time is left, okay? If you ever see a lawyer get up, I should stand, but I'm a North Carolina lawyer, I get to sit down. Okay, and here you go. get up and do a cross, something like this. Now, Mr. Reg, isn't it a fact that on or about June 10th, at or about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you exited Murphy's Bar? You exited out onto Adams Boulevard, where you first observed, a light, by the way. The body language in those two openings was precious, okay? But you first observed a light rain, and you further observed a vehicle. And the vehicle was a green Pontiac convertible. And the driver of that vehicle was a man you knew to be Tom Clancy. And sitting in the passenger seat in that vehicle was a woman, a blonde woman. And that vehicle was going west on Adams Street. Isn't that correct? Yeah, you laugh, but I've seen stuff like that, and I'll bet you have too. And now, of course, the witness looks back at you and says, no. The witness says, no, now what do you have to do? You gotta take that long sausage you just put out there, get a sharp knife and start cutting it into little pieces, because you don't know what the no was true. So that's the second reason why I'm short. And the third one is simply stated, if you're short, there's less chance you're gonna screw up, okay? So be short, okay? Now, I suspect some of you, probably many of you, have heard me speak on cross-examination, okay? Those of you who have heard me speak on cross-examination cannot answer this question. I have a target here for this, but anyway, I don't want you to answer. Let the others do it, please, okay? Now, I say be short. How short can we get cross-examination? How few words can we get cross-examination down to? I need your input. Come on, quick, so we can move.
3 or 4 words?
So we'll take one or the other. Take 3, it's the better number. Okay, 3, I got it, 3.
I'd say 1 fact per question.
Oh, that's bullshit, 1 fact per question. Number 1, nobody knows what 1 fact is. And number 2, you're about to learn that you never use questions. So take that and throw that, that's a myth, okay, 1 fact per question. I'll talk to you about it over a beer, 1 fact per question. I've got a 3 here. Come on, I need
9.
you. Who said 9? Who said 9? Oh, you guys, you're a bunch of...
1.
I did see, yes, young lady.
I'm gonna say 1.
1? You don't want to move it down to none. No. So I got a 1, I've got a 3. That's enough. The hell with it. We want to move on and get to drink something tonight. Okay. The answer, believe it or not, is 1. You are absolutely right, young lady.
Ding, 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 ding.
So, now, there's doubting Thomases and doubting Thomasines in here, and you say 1 word, you can do 1 word cross? Huh? I came all the way from Chicago to demonstrate this. Mr. 3, are you ready?
Sure.
Because you're probably one of the doubting Thomases. How do you get 1 word cross? Are you ready?
Okay.
The car was green.
Right.
I screwed that up. I don't know why I screwed it up. I never have before, but I did screw it up. Watch this. Let's change it. You ready? Okay, I apologize, right? Simple. 1 word cross, right? Green.
What's that?
What about it? That's the answer I wanted. And I would have got that answer if I did it right the first time, but I screwed it up the first time. What about it? He says, okay. Hey, young lady, you told me 1 word. I just did 1 word. It didn't work. Did you see it not work? That's your fault, right? So anyway, here's the answer. Now, to do 1, you can do 1 word, and you will be doing 1 word cross, by the way. way, but you can't just do one word cross. Before you can do it, there are three things, you knew that, three, right? Three things that you have to do, okay? And here they are, okay? Number one, eliminate the prefixes. Oh, this is big stuff, by the way, for most of you. Number two, eliminate the suffixes. Well, couldn't that have been one? Yeah, it could have been one, but then I would only have two things, so I wanted three. Okay, what I'm telling you is eliminate the taglines, the things that make it a traditional leading question. Get rid of those, okay? Why? I'll explain to you in 17 minutes why you're gonna get rid of them, okay? But in any event, you wanna get rid of the taglines, okay? And number three, and this may be my biggest and best contribution to you, and I give it to you, and I'm committed to your use. It'll change your life if you learn to use it. You ready for it? You've got to use transitions. Transitions are beautiful tools. You try a lawyer's toolbox, and you reach in and you pull out this just wonderful thing called a transition. And you're going to use the transition. You must use it on cross-examination if you're going to use my system, okay? Now, what's a transition? Greatest tool ever, by the way, for directing and particularly for cross-examination. Here's a problem we've got, though. The problem is each and all of you, I dare say, have used transitions in the past. Yeah, you have, believe it or not. You've not used them unless you've been using my system. You've not used them in cross-examination, but you've used them in direct examination, huh? And what transitions did you, by the way, is it me or is it getting warm in here? Okay, thank you. Are you cold? Would you like a jacket? I thought I'd get a little halo effect up there. Okay, I'm taking this off the hell with it, okay? So, there it goes. Anybody in this room never put a witness on the stand in direct examination? Never. Don't be embarrassed, I'm just curious. Nobody, okay. So that means that you are each and all sinners. Everybody in this room is committed the sin I am about to announce. Why? Because each and every one of you dummies have got up in a courtroom, a judge up there, a persecutor over there, a poor person you're representing over there, and out of your foul mouths have come language, something like this. And I dare any of you to tell me you've never done it. Ms. Jones, directing your attention to May 1st of this year, what, if any, when you were in or near Murphy's Bar, what, if anything unusual occurred? Is there anybody in here can honestly say they have never spoken like that ever? Well, the one good thing is honesty. We've got honesty in here. Each and every one of you dumb shits have got out and directing your attention. What, if anything unusual occurred? Well, yes, that goes out. God, I'll eat your firstborn if you ever speak like that again. Well, where'd you learn it? You learn it from persecutors. They're the ones. Are they fully responsible? No. Evidence teachers added to it. What did the evidence teachers put in? The if anything. Why did they put in the if anything? They wanted to make it less objectionable. Was it objectionable to start with? No, but evidence teachers, they were belts and braces at the same time, those dumb shits. So, anyway, you used that transition, directing your attention to what, if anything, unusual occurred. That's horseshit, by the way. By the way, the groups that have me know, I have 98 rules of trial advocacy, and one of the most important of my rules, we'll get to this again in a moment, but one of the most important of my rules of trial advocacy is you speak in a courtroom the way you speak in a bar. okay? That's good news for you, by the way. Because when we go out drinking tonight, Andy, right, we order a couple of extra martinis, right? Why? Because we're in a bar. We're learning to speak, so it's tax deductible. Here you go. You speak in a courtroom the way you speak in a bar. If you walked into a bar, Bruce, tonight you saw somebody sitting there, would you go up to them and say, well, directing your attention at or about an hour before, what if anything unusual occurred in this bar? Do you see how stupid it sounds? But yet you dumb shits use it, okay? So it's out completely. But Terry, you just told us the transition's the greatest tool. Yes, but I'm gonna give you a transition, my transition, and you are going to love it. Mr. 3, we're back with you again. God bless you, young man. Okay, here's the transition. I want to ask you some questions about what you saw when you left Murphy's Bar at 3 o'clock. You understand?
Yes.
By the way, body language is so important. You see that body language, gang? That'll change your life too. Anytime you want somebody to say yes, it's simple as shit. Just nod your head like this and tell them something and they will say yes. I wish Dale were here because he's been with me in several of these excursions, but I have won more drinks and dinners by doing this. You're going out to dinner and you don't have a reservation. You walk in, the maitre d' is there, and you look at the maitre d' and you say, you have a good table for me. Oh, yes, ma'am. Yeah, it works. You get a better room, it works. So, particularly good with judges on objections. But in any event, there you go. You just heard a transition, a proper transition. By the way, let's break it down. I want to ask you some questions. Are we going to ask them any questions? Absolutely not. This is cross-examination. We're lying, but that's all right. You'll have no problem lying. Now, there's one young lady in here tonight, but other than the rest of you, that's an inside joke. I can't see her, so I get it. So I want to ask you some questions about, and whatever the hell it is, I want to ask you some questions about what you did last night. You understand? I want to ask you some questions about what you're going to do tonight. You understand? You see it? Whatever the hell it is, you focus it, and there you go. That's the transition you're going to now use. It will change your life. And tomorrow, when you're doing your crosses, use it often. Err on the side of using it more frequently than you think you would want to use it. Every time you want to change focus, always use the transition to do it. Because the transition, by using it, it allows you to get short with your statements that you're going to use. It's a miracle thing. It's a wonderful thing. So now, if we can, go back to you, Mr. 3. Okay, I want to ask you some questions. And see, notice I'm looking good. I'm smiling. I'm not looking like Nancy Grace, God, that woman is ugly. Oh, Jesus, Mary, and I don't understand something. When you ladies were growing up, didn't your mothers ever tell you, oh, smile, don't walk around like this, because if you walk around like this, you're going to grow up looking like this? What the hell happened to Nancy Grace's mother? Where was she in the picture, okay? But anyway, here we go. So we start off here. I want to ask you some questions. This is my beautiful jury, about what you saw when you left Murphy's Bar around 3 o'clock. You understand? Yes. There you go. There's your transition. Isn't that beautiful? Now watch how we're going to do this. Yeah. And by the way, I didn't talk about this because there's enough. You've got some great teachers here. They talk about body language. Oh, the body language in those openings was incredible. But let's paint the picture. We're talking. We're telling a story. Let's have body language. You walked outside. Yeah, you see it? Yeah, he's walking outside. You dumb shits. Now you're getting the jury's getting. You walked outside.
Right.
A little bit of rain coming down. Let them feel the damn rain. A little bit of rain coming down.
Yes.
Yeah, and you looked around.
I did.
There's a good one there. There's a good plausibility one there, but I don't want to take the time to go into it. And you saw a car. A Pontiac,
Yes.
convertible,
Yes.
green.
Yes.
We justified your confidence in the lady. Okay, and here we go. And now, a judge, I'm embarrassed to tell you this, but a judge heard me speaking 15 years ago, and he said, oh, that's great stuff, Terry, I like it. He said, I'll give you a hint. And his hint was actually a good one. He said, you tell them that how they get into this story mode, they say something under their breath. Don't say it out loud. Jesus, you'd be embarrassed to say it out loud. But under your breath, you say the magic words. What are they? Once upon a time. And now it's going to be once upon a time he walked out of Murphy's bar and what he saw. Now, let's demonstrate the system. Are we ready for Mr. 3 again? Okay? Yeah, that's right. I'm giving you a chance to do your writing. Okay. Although there's outlines you get on outline. And, excuse me. You knew the driver,
Yes.
and that was Clancy,
Yes.
Tom Clancy.
Right.
There was a passenger in the car.
Right.
And here, I'm telling the story to my beautiful jury here, right? And you didn't know the passenger.
No.
It was a woman,
Yes.
a blonde woman,
Right.
and the car was going west.
Right.
Okay? Now, I'm going to use a transition you don't know, but just hold on to me. Now, I want to ask you some questions about the next time you saw the car around 4 o'clock. You understand? Clancy was still driving,
He was.
but you couldn't see the woman in the car.
No.
And now the car was going east,
Right.
east on Monroe Street.
Right.
By the way, that's right where Monroe Street goes right through. Anyway, on Monroe Street, yeah. And now, I want to ask you some questions. Here's your transition again. Beautiful. I want to ask you some questions about what you did the next morning when you got up. You understand?
Yes.
You got dressed.
I did.
You put your shoes on.
Right.
Both of them. Okay, now, I won't keep going, but you see, you now have the guts of the system, okay? Is there any time you go longer? Yeah, if you're looping, I'm not gonna do it because you've got too many good instructors that work with you in looping, but if you loop, you can go longer. Otherwise, you've got the system. Let's change. Now, statement, well, cross-examination, like everything else, cross-examination, like everything else, has a history. A history. And when you get as old as I am, and you can sit back and read some of the history, it's fun, okay? And cross-examination's history suggests to us that there have been 3 stages, 3, I love that 3 stages of cross-examination, huh? And as a matter of fact, all 3 of those stages of cross-examination are available to you today. So when you get up to cross-examine, you can do it the first way, the second way, or the more third way, okay? They're all available to you today. Well, what are the 3 ways you can go about cross-examination? By the way, whatever, if anybody, I'll tell you what, it's my job to talk, it's yours to listen. If you get tired before I do, let me know, go, okay? But anyway, here we go. Here's the 3 stages of cross. First stage of cross, questions, including open-ended questions. Did you go to the store? Question. Open-ended question. Why did you go to the store? By the way, that's what they were trying to get you to do in voir dire, wasn't it? The open-ended question. But anyway, so here we go. Those are questions. And for years, lawyers used questions including open-ended. Well, here, Irv Younger, who doesn't know anything about cross-examination, or didn't, what is he doing? Well, if you didn't see him bite it off, how do you know he bit it off? What's that? That's an open-ended question, you dumb shit. You never ask that. You deserve whatever happens to you when you do, okay? So now, questions. Are we ever going to use questions? Well, there's a couple of rare exceptions, but I'm not going to talk about them. They're not worth the candle, okay? But no questions. Cross-examination is not the time for the Discovery Channel. This is not the time to find out what the hell this case is all about, okay? So we don't use questions. Why don't we use questions? Because number one, if we use questions, we're not going to get control over the witness. We'll never have control over the witness. Secondly, what we do when we ask questions is we advocate our right to be the storyteller. I'm giving my right to be the storyteller over to perjuring Pete, and that's bad shit, okay? And not only are we, number three, not only are we advocating our right to be the storyteller, but we are accrediting him. We're in effect telling the jury, hey, I'm gonna ask him a question because I'm confident he's gonna give us a good and honest answer. We're accrediting this dumb shit who we don't like, okay? So no questions, open-ended in particular, okay? Number two, along came the 70s, the early 70s, the renaissance of trial advocacy. Nita deserves the majority of the credit, although this college followed close right behind them and actually surpassed what they do. But the 70s, they came out with, it had existed before, but nobody ever used it or thought of it or anything. But suddenly, trial lawyers were being taught to use the traditional leading questions. The traditional leading questions, and you know what those are. You went to the store. Isn't that correct? Remember that? And that came out, and that was a great improvement because it gave us some control. Well, it was a great improvement, and for a long time it served well, but the problem today is that who mastered this traditional leading question thing? We, criminal defense lawyers. Criminal defense lawyers took to this like you could never believe. They loved it. And criminal defense lawyers mastered the traditional leading question. And those lawyers, those older lawyers, are the ones I have the most problem converting today. And they got into the isn't that correct and all that shit, okay? Now, well, what's wrong with it, Terry? What's wrong with it? I'll tell you what's wrong with it. You know, Reggie, there's going to be three things wrong. And here you go, in ascending order of importance. Number one, to my lovely young lady in the last row that didn't do the head waiter and get a seat, or do you have a seat? Maybe you do. I guess you do have a seat. Okay. But for her, you'll never get one word cross if you use the traditional leading question. It's got to go down green. Isn't that correct? Yeah. Okay? So you'll never get one word cross if you use it. Number two, you will be partaking in legal speak. Legal speak. Okay? And remember again, jurors don't like lawyers. Legal speak bores the shit out of them, and it's not something they want. And here you will be in legal speak. You went to the store. Isn't that correct? You bought some tomatoes. Isn't that correct? You bought some potatoes. Isn't that correct? And you left the store. Isn't that correct? What the hell do you think you sound like? You know, you sound like a lawyer, and we don't want to sound like lawyers, okay? And the third reason, the most important reason we are going to, eliminate the traditional leading question. Remember I told you I'd tell you why, and said, oh, here we go. And here's the most important reason. It doesn't lend itself to storytelling. It doesn't. I'm telling you to tell stories. Leading questions do not come across in storytelling. I call my granddaughter. Deirdre, come here. Sit on Grandpa's lap. I want to tell you a story, Deirdre. Now, you can use it now. You wouldn't use it. Once upon a time, see, I wouldn't use it in court now. Once upon a time, there was a little girl who was lost in the woods. Isn't that correct? It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It just destroys everything. So get rid of that shit. And it's the veteran lawyers who have a hard time getting rid of it. So what does that leave us? We had questions. We had the traditional leading question. And what does that leave us? And here you go, right from the college. Ready? Statements, statements. That's why the young man who wasn't over here talked about one fact per question. We don't use questions, we use statements, statements, statements. You went to the store. There it is, a simple statement. And that's what you want to do, use statements. Why? Because when you use statements, number one, you will get one word cross. Number two, you will eliminate all that legal speak. And number three, it will lend itself to storytelling. Oh yeah, but Terry, when I go back to South Jesus, Kansas, will I have problems and maybe objections when I use statements? Not really. In the early years, I thought we wouldn't. We really didn't have much then. You'll occasionally, very occasionally get it. And if you do, there should be no problem. Even, well, NITA's teaching this now. The U.S. attorneys are learning it. Everybody's learning it, so you shouldn't have a problem now. And I'll show you how to diffuse the problem. I will show you that. But in any event, boy, I'm drenched. I'm just here. It's hot down here. We're not in Alaska. Okay, so anyway, the statement is what you want to use, okay? And it's just beautiful. It's great. Now, well, what happens though if I'm in the courtroom, Terry, and my opponent gets up and objects and says, Your Honor, I object. He's not asking statement, or he's not asking questions. By the way, your master of all the music and everything back there, she made my book on cross-examination. And she made it because most of us think, well, who's going to object? Your opponent, the persecutor, right? Or maybe even the judge. But Andrea, oh no, she takes it a step further. Who objected when she was cross-examining him? In a big narcotics case several years ago, quite a few years ago now, who objected? The witness on the stand. I object, you're not asking me questions. Swear it's in the book, of course. I swear to God. And she handled it like what she is, like a pro, and did a beautiful job with it. But if you get the objection, I object, Your Honor, he's not asking questions. Just look at the judge, okay? Where's the judge? You look judicial here today, right now, young man. And you look at the judge in the eyes, and what are you going to say to him? I told you already. As Your Honor well knows. That puts knowledge in him. His clerk and everybody in the courtroom being pressed, His Honor knows this. And if he knows it, how can he rule against it, you see? It's great. It works beautifully, okay? Except that you got to follow that with some law. You can't just say, as Your Honor well knows, rule for me, okay? So you got to follow it. There's two cases in your outline you can use. The Matheson case is out of Idaho, as Your Honor well knows. In the Matheson case, the United States Supreme Court said this is not only the proper, but the only way to cross-examine. You'll get the ruling, I'm telling you. You got your head going too, of course. But as Your Honor well knows, there you go, you'll get the ruling. But but Terry, you don't know some of our judges. You don't know these Neanderthals. So, okay, there's my judge right there. Let's set up our little players here and show you how to handle it when the judge rules against you, so that you're ready for that. This isn't going to happen, but you should know, okay? The witness right there. Yours is going to be a cameo role, of course, but there's the witness. I need a persecutor. I hate to do this to you. You're such a lovely young lady, but you're my persecutor, okay? And I'm going to say something. The very first thing I say is we've got to move, and you're going to say, Your Honor, I object. He's not asking questions. And I'm not going to say, as Your Honor well knows, because you'll go back home, you'll have forgotten to do that. So you, judge, you want to help her become governor of the state, so you're going to say, sustain. You got your role, you got your line, you got yours, watch it. And I'll show you how to disabuse them so that she will never make this objection again in her life. And you dumb shit, you will never grant it again in your life, okay? So here we go. Let's come into my courtroom, okay? Murphy's Bar, of course. You saw a car.
Objection, Your Honor. He's not asking a question.
Sustained.
Now, by the way, how many of you, when the judge sustains, they look at him and say, oh, thank you, you're right. You hypocrites. That's sick. But anyway, I invaded my own story there. Let's try it once more, and I won't do it this time. You saw a car.
Objection, not asking a question.
Sustained.
Okay. A convertible, right? Green, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you knew the driver, right? That was Clancy, right?
Yeah.
Tom Clancy, right?
Correct.
And there was a woman in the car,
Correct.
a passenger.
Sustained.
Now, wait a minute. You see what just happened, but you didn't object again. You had enough brains, but you're not a judge, so that's understandable. But you had enough brains not to object.
But
And they-
I'm just helping her.
I know.
You said she's a passenger.
But anyway, here's exactly what's happened. The jury is looking
What's happening?
at this dipshit and her associate there and saying, in effect, what is this turning into? A game of Simon Says. You saw a car, Simon Says, that shit. And you do that, and you will stop them. I now have 9 transcripts from people where this exactly happened and it was never renewed. I've never seen one where the judge picked it up, but that was a first, okay. So anyway, that's how you get rid of it, use statements. Okay. Let's do one last thing. Oh, Jesus. Well, I'm not doing bad. I started awful late, gang. Okay, one last thing, and I will be happy. If I can leave you with this, you'll be able to go in tomorrow and do the job required. By the way, a lot of people will teach you, oh God, criminal defense lawyers in particular, the most important thing cross-examination is control. Oh, bullshit, it's not control. Control's a nice thing. Do we want control? Yes, we want control, and if we can get it, we'll take it. But now, I'm gonna shock you by telling you there's something even better than control, gang. Much better than control. And that's where the witness decides to deny you control, okay? This is a game about you want to look good, but it's also about getting the witness to look bad. And that's where that plausibility stuff comes in. Oh, you make them look awful bad with that. But make the witness look bad. Now, if you had your choice of controlling the witness or having the witness look bad, what do you think you'd prefer? Have the witness look bad. This is what you want. So it's not control is the ultimate. Control's important. And tomorrow when you go into your groups, you want to control the witness. I'm going to show you momentarily how you can do that, okay? But control isn't the answer. We've got, in our office, we've got some phenomenal lawyers. And a very strange thing took place here a few years back. The big thing in the federal courts, and I know there are some federal, not enough, by the way, but some federal defenders here, and the big thing was felon in possession of a gun. Oh, everybody wanted to do that because it was a big sentence, and besides, oh hell, when you bring those cases, all you're bringing them against are the African Americans and the Hispanics, So that's good shit. We don't have to put any white people in jail, okay? So anyway, that became the big thing under the Bush administration, okay? Unfortunately, it's still persisting in the present administration. Not quite as much, but pretty much, okay? Well, all of a sudden, our young lawyers started winning those cases. And if they didn't win them, they were hanging juries. Now, I tried cases for, 40-some years. You know how many cases I hung in 40-some years? One. We've got a young lawyer in our office, Amani, who within a period of 2.5 years, hung 7 juries. I mean, that's incredible. He was here, of course, but that's incredible. That's trial advocacy, okay? 7 juries he hung, okay, in 2.5 years. You worked with him once in a while. He's a great young trial lawyer, okay? And so, well, why? You know, I want to know why. How are they having this great success? Why? Well, then it comes out. You know what it's all about? These felon in possession cases, who are the witnesses? They're not Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. They're not FBI agents. They are county police officers from Rolling Meadows or from some other, you know, dipshit little community, okay? And those are the witnesses in the cases. And they come in with a little chip on their shoulder, and I'm gonna show these federales that I'm a tough cop and I can handle myself. So they come in to fight us. They come in to fight us. And that's what's allowing us to kick their butt. We don't keep the control, but we make them look like fools, and that's the way Amani has been handling these things. So control is not the answer, okay? It's good. Tomorrow, you're gonna work on control, because that's what you want tomorrow, control. But that's not the eventual answer. If you can make the witness look bad, that's even better. Okay, so now, against that background, you've got a witness on the stand. We're going back to you, Bertram and Pete. And, excuse me. And you look at the witness and you say to the witness, you saw a car. And the witness looks back at you and says, oh, yeah, it was raining out, and I was trying to get my umbrella up because I was scared. I had some groceries, and I was scared the groceries were going to get wet. So what's just happened? You used a statement, a good statement, you saw a car, but you didn't get your answer. Why didn't you get your answer? Because dipshit here tinkled all over your floor. I use the analogy of you're training a puppy when you cross-examine. And now I've got to train this puppy, okay? And that puppy just tinkled on my floor, okay? Well, what am I going to do with a tinkling puppy? I'm going to punish him. And by the way, in the early years of this developing this system here, there were, then and now, there were great faculty members here, and a couple of very dear friends of mine would go to dinner, and they say, Jesus, Terry, I love what you're doing, this is great shit, but one thing makes no sense. What's that? Well, you're gonna punish the damn little puppy. You're gonna punish this puppy who didn't hurt you. All he said was, he didn't hurt you with that answer, but yet you're talking a little good, and yet you're gonna punish the puppy. And I'd say to them, yes, you must punish the puppy. We don't understand that. A couple of really, they've converted, but a couple of really good lawyers were on me on this. And I said, here's the deal. Anytime the puppy tinkles, tinkle stinks. And if you allow the puppy to tinkle a little bit, pretty soon the puppy will think it's got a right to tinkle a lot more. And pretty soon the tinkle will also include some ground bombs coming down. And your courtroom will be polluted shortly, okay? So you must punish the puppy that tinkles. Even if the tinkle didn't hurt you, it still stinks. You can smell it in the courtroom. And you want to control the puppy. Here's how you control the puppy, okay? By the way, I'm going to be shameless for just a minute, and I'll come back to controlling the puppy, but a few years ago, I think 5 now, I don't remember. A few years ago, I stayed sober for a little while, and I actually wrote a book on, I was sick, but I was recuperating, and I wrote a book, and the book is MacCarthy on Cross-Examination Appropriately, okay? And the book has got phenomenal reviews from all the bar associations, everybody. You can read the reviews on Amazon.com. There's only one bad review of the book, okay? And that comes from New Jersey. And the guy who wrote it is Safe Cop Joe. That's his moniker, okay? And he wrote, he didn't like it. what was his major objection? I equate witnesses with puppy dogs. So anyway, but other than that, it's got great reviews, it's the bestseller in the ABA, and it's not a bad book. If anybody wants to buy it, I can get you a deal on it, okay? If you buy it through the ABA, you're a fool, because the ABA is charging $130 for the book, and that's outrageous, okay? I had a big fight with them over this, and we're not finished fighting, but anyway, $130. Well, you can get it on Amazon.com. I learned, if you ever want to buy a book, go to Amazon.com. They're always cheaper there. You can get it on Amazon.com for, they changed the price, but about $88, I think it is, on Amazon.com. Although they're usually out, they're back ordered. And there's no secondhand. You can't get a secondhand book. Just, well, but in any event, you can get it from them. But anybody in this room, the one deal I do have with the ABA, if I'm giving a lecture, anybody that's at that lecture can buy the book for $73. That's getting to be a pretty good buy, because it's a damn good. The author's brilliant. It's not a bad. Well, you've got it, you dumb shit, and you read it, and that's another story. The nice young man, he pulled a fast one on me last night. But anyway, if you want it, so would you do me a favor? Maybe you could start one down here, a yellow pad, and start one up there, and start one over there, and just pass it around. If you don't want it, fine, I don't give a shit. But if you want it, write your name and address. They do not take post office addresses. Why? I don't know. But just write your name and address and pass it around. And if you do, even if you don't want it, start over there and start over there and pass it. And then I will take it back to Civilization. Those who sign up, I'll get you the book for $73. It's a good book, by the way. It teaches you so much that we can't cover today, including how to get witnesses to say that which they don't want to say, okay? Just a lot of good stuff in there. Okay, so anyway, okay. We've got the puppy that's tinking, okay? How do we handle the puppy that's tinking? By the way, the book will give you about a dozen ways to do it. About half of them are horseshit ways to do it. You never want to use them. And the other half are good ways, but by and large, they relate to the particular lawyer using them. Juanita Brooks. Anybody ever hear or see Juanita Brooks? Well, yeah. She is one of, in my opinion, one of the great trial lawyers in this country. She's in San Diego. And Juanita is an incredible lawyer. And she's got a wonderful way to do things. And Juanita, when it's got the witness and she says, you saw a car, and the witness says, well, I just blah, 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 blah. Juanita looks at him, as only Juanita could do, and she says, oh, I'm sorry. I confused you with my question. It's my fault. I'm sorry. Let me try it again. You saw a car. And you see this just beautiful little woman doing this. And my son Terry, who used to be a real lawyer, he's not anymore, he doesn't work anymore, he's a judge. But he used that once in a while. And he got away with it. I couldn't, I don't know why. But it's effective. Well, there's a few others. Spence has got a way to do it, and other people. But I'm going to give you my way to do it. Why? It's not my way. I didn't invent it. I stole it from somebody else. But it's effective, and it works, and it's easy, and you can remember. And here we go. How do we handle the tinkling puppy? Okay? Very simple. You saw a car. Tinkle, tinkle, tinkle. Now, what you are going to do is repeat word for word what you just said, your statement. Repeat it word for word. However, you got to get a little sophistication in here. Here you go. When you repeat it slower than the pace you were using. And you use, oh, here's a good one for you, a new one, a rising inflection. Now, why do you do this shit? Because this is, I've talked to psychologists, speech people, communicators. There's a lot of science behind this. So take it, in prudence of a doubt, take my word for how you should do it. Okay? So You're gonna repeat it, but you're gonna repeat it slower with a rising inflection. Demonstrate, absolutely. You saw a car, your normal pace, yeah, and you walked outside, yeah. A little rain coming down, yeah. You saw a car, tinkle, tinkle, tinkle. He finishes. Don't interrupt them while they're telling their bullshit. You don't interrupt. That makes you look bad with the jury. So you let them finish. And then you look at them and say, you saw a car. And you hit that last word slowly and hit that last word. And normally you will get your answer. Well, what if you don't? You're going to do it another time, okay? But stop and look at the what's happening here, okay? You look at him, you say you saw a car, and he gives you the bullshit, right? He tinkles, right? Now you go back and you say you saw a car, and now he says yes. What's happened to him? In the eyes of the jurors, he's lost credibility. This is good shit. I love it when they don't answer the first time, okay? Because they lose credibility. The jury doesn't like this, and they lose credibility. So now, what about a third time? Maybe he gives me some more tinkle. The third time when you do it, we're going to add just a little bit to it. I didn't tell you this. I didn't tell you a lot of stuff, but here you go. When you're cross-examining, don't ever call anybody by, well, you do one time. It's going to be right now. Don't call people by name or give them an honorific, doctor, sergeant, or whatever the hell it is. You don't. Why? Because when you do that, you're giving away control psychologically. Anybody really wants to know about that and how I can prove it, I'll talk to you over a beer, but I'm not going to do it now. But you'll give away control. So no names, no honorifics, huh? Okay, except right now. And now, if I have to tweak him, I call it tweaking the witness. Tweaking means you take a newspaper, roll it up, go over to the witness, just hit him in the nose. That's tweaking. That's what we're going to do. And tweaking simply means to repeat slowly with a rising inflection, okay? Now, if you do it the second time, and he still tinkles, he's still got some tinkle left in his bladder, and there you get some more tinkle down there. Then the third time you do it a little bit differently. And the third time you do it, now, first of all, you're going to take your hands. I learned this down here. I was teaching a class down here probably 12, 13 years ago, whatever it was, and a young lady in my class, this is the way she did it. And I just thought it was phenomenal. I thought it was phenomenal. She went on to become a great trial lawyer, by the way, but she did it like this. She took her two hands and she held them out to him like this. And I thought, Jesus, that was beautiful, the way she did that. And now, the only time you can use a name, Mr. Jones, you saw a car. Did you see it? Now, what you're saying to effect is, you lying sack of shit, would you please answer us so we can move on? The jury, if you're using my system, by the way, the jury knows dipshit saw a car, okay? And they don't like him for trying to evade the answer, okay? So that's how you handle the tinkling puppy. One real quick one. Some of you have another issue, but I'm not going to do it now because I don't want to keep you here. But would you repeat word for word all the time, Terry? No. As you could well imagine, there are 3 times you don't repeat, okay? And let me mention a couple too. One of the times you don't repeat is when you were wrong the first time. Is that possible? Yeah, it's possible. All of us can screw up, and we do, okay? So I've got the witness on the stand, and I say to the witness, you saw a car? Yes. Blue. And the witness says, no, counsel, it was light blue. Look at your notes down there, and lo and behold, the car was light blue. You were wrong, huh? Well, it helps to be Irish. The Irish are never wrong. We always have a scapegoat, for anything we supposedly did wrong. So now you got to be quick on your feet to handle this situation. And so it goes down something like this, okay? So here we go. You saw a car, blue. No, calculate with light blue. You see it now, it was, okay? What are you gonna argue with him? No. There was blue in the car. Oh, well, yes, but it was a light blue. In other words, I was right all along, just let me develop what I want to say, but it was light blue, okay? So that's, if you're wrong, don't repeat it, don't just repeat blue, okay? That's the only, I could give you a couple of others in there, but I don't know that you need them, but that one you do need when you get into battle, okay? Yeah, that's good enough. So anyway, when you go in there tomorrow, you know, we've all had enough people go to jail, so why don't we, and you've all had cross-examinations that you walked away from and you said, you know, I just didn't feel that good or comfortable about that cross-examination, okay? So why don't you try something different and try to use the system. Try and look good, tell a story when you're cross-examining. You've been working on that now, and use short statements to tell that story. And you will find that life will be wonderful. You can do a marvelous thing. I shouldn't tell you this, but I will. Some years ago, not that many, you can figure it out, I was asked to do a demonstration cross-examination at a program at the University of Virginia, Mr. Jefferson's Law School. It was a program for it. And I was asked to do a demo class. I'm going to cut to the chase and really condense this. But to make a long story short, when I got there, the professor running the program said, "Oh, Terry, you're going to do the demo cross." I said, this is shameless, but I'm going to tell you. And I said, yeah. He said, "Well, you know who the judge is going to be?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, you're curious?" And I said, "No. I don't care who the judge is. Judges don't have anything to do when I'm crossing. I just want the judge to sit up there and look judicial. I don't want them to open their mouth or say anything or do anything." Okay? He said, "Well, you're not even curious who the judge is going to be?" I said, "No." I said, "I'm going to do my cross and I don't give a damn." "Well, I got to tell you." I said, "Well, I figured you're going to. You're going to." He said, "Justice Scalia is going to be the judge." I said, "Oh, isn't that going?" Okay. I said, "By the way, I don't suspect he knows much about trial advocacy." You got a kick out of that. So anyway, long and short, the lawyer that did the direct in the case, nice guy, brilliant guy, but he had one defect. He was an evidence teacher. Okay, and it was a horrible direct, but forgetting that. But the big mistake they made was this. The case was horrible. It was an eyewitness case, and it was prepared by, you can imagine how good or bad this case would be. It was prepared by the district attorney's office and the police in New York.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the case? There was a robbery in an elevator. Oh, God, it was a terrible case, okay? So anyway, this guy did a direct. Well, they needed a witness. And the witness, this was in the tenements in a poor neighborhood in New York. Well, what they should have used, and they had plenty of young ladies there that could have filled the bill, was a young, preferably African-American gal to play the part of the witness. But they were all concerned. They said, "Oh no, MacCarthy's going to do the cross. We got to get ready for him." So what they did, believe it or not, they allowed law school students, about 60 of them, into this program. So they brought in a senior law school student, and her background was she had been a DEA agent down in Texas for about 7 years, okay? And she had been cross-examined, as she said, at least a dozen times, okay? So they decided she's the witness. Well, that was the best thing that ever happened, because she came in with the chip on her shoulder. She wanted to fight me. Fight me she did. And you can't win a lot of times in the federal court unless they do. But anyway, so she came in determined to fight me, which you really have. Well, anyway, I did the cross. Well, I should explain to you, this is where I take a minute. I get on the bus that night, my wife and I are walking along. bus, we're going to dinner, the whole faculty has been taken to dinner, and as we're going by Justice Scalia, his wife was not with him, because he's got a son who was a major over in the Middle East, and the son was home on leave, and so his wife, Maureen, was not with him. And as we're going by, he looks up at me and he says, Terry, sit down, I want to talk to you. And I said, sure. I sat down talking. And he said, boy, you were really hard on me today. I said, I was hard on you? And this was the direct only now, okay? And I said, hard on you? He says, yeah, you made me look foolish. And I said, Judge, I objected 5 times. You sustained 1, you overruled 4. Now, why was I hard on? Well, yeah, Steve Salzberg, who's a genius on evidence, he was critiquing the direct. And he turned around and looked at Scalia and he said, by the way, Justice Scalia, while I'm critiquing the direct, I want to critique you. He said, Terry made 5 objections. You sustained 1, you overruled 4. The 4 you overruled, you were absolutely wrong on, okay? So, he said, and I said, I didn't know. All I did was object. He said, well, then he admitted, he said, you know, we judges don't know a lot of evidence. I said, well, I'm well aware of that. I said, you know, we have a brilliant judge in the 7th Circuit, who I'm sure is a friend of yours, Judge Posner. And I said, Posner, by the way, came down and tried a case as a district court judge. And he said, oh, really? I said, yeah. And he was reversed on evidentiary ruling. He was a district court judge. And I didn't know this. I came back and I'm talking to Judge Bauer, who sits in the 7th Circuit, and I'm telling him the story, and he said, reversed? He tried 2 cases. He was reversed on both of them, and I wrote both opinions, he said. But anyway, so we got, watch. No, watch. There's an eyewitness identification case up in the Supreme Court. I don't know the name of it or anything about it, but there's one up there now. Watch that case. I wasn't going to go into this, but I think it's worth your part too. When we're talking, he says, well, now, he says, you got to cross-examine that witness tomorrow. And I said, yeah. He says, you have nothing to work with. You have no material, nothing to do. And I said, well, it's not an easy cross. He said, it's eyewitness identification. I said, I know. And I said, eyewitness identification is a tough one for us. It's tough because, for 3 reasons, 3. Well, first of all, the witness on the stand probably believes what she's saying. Number 2, the witness is a victim. She's been mugged, robbed, whatever the hell it is. And thirdly, and most importantly, jurors give great weight to eyewitness identification. And I swear to God, this is the conversation. He said, well, of course they do. So do I. I can't think of better evidence. I said, holy cow. I said, how can you say that? Look at what Barry Scheck has done with the Innocence Project out there. I said, those were all, not all, but most of them were eyewitness cases. It's terrible. And then I told him, I said, you know, you should go. Well, he does go to Ireland. He goes to Ireland because his wife is Irish. But he goes to Ireland, and I said, would you go over there? See the instruction they've got to give in Ireland on eyewitness cases. So they have a specific, I said, they have a great instruction. The judge, and they're good at instructing jurors over there, too much, I think, but they're good. The judge on an eyewitness case, this is what they must do. They must look at the jury, and they must say to the jury, now, ladies, gentlemen of the jury, this is an eyewitness case. Now, I, as a longtime judge, the prosecutor down there, the defense attorney, we all know that eyewitness identification is the worst form of evidence you could ever have in a courtroom. And as a matter of fact, you will recall, and then they must cite to the jury 2 infamous cases where somebody was erroneously convicted on eyewitness case. Can you believe that? And you remember the O'Malley case, and O'Malley served 5 years in jail, and then we found out he didn't, even though 5 people said it was O'Malley in the bar that night, you know that. And he looks at me and he says, you're kidding me. I said, no. He said, would you send me that? And I said, oh, I'd love to. I'll send it to you. So I sent it to him. This is a few years ago now. And I sent it to him. And I got a nice little note back, and in the note back, he said, guess what? He said, I read it with interest, and I sent a copy to all the justices. We haven't had an eyewitness case since then. I'm not that optimistic, but let's see what happens with the eyewitness case, okay? But anyway, so he says, you know what, you don't have anything to work with. The next day, I cross-examined this witness. I have tapes of all this, because they tape everything. And when I finished, Steve Salzberg and John Lowe's a Virginia lawyer, they both got up and they said, you'll never see a cross-examination like that again in your life. I literally destroyed this one. Not that she didn't, but she fought me and she made a fool of herself. She came up after, she said, every time I opened my mouth, I kept digging a bigger hole. I knew it, but I couldn't stop it, okay? So Steve looked down at her and said, well, you ever cross-examined like that before? She said, oh God, absolutely not, yeah. So anyway, the cross was rather destructive. I did, for a change, I did a good job, right? About 6-8 weeks later, I ran into Justice Scalia again. To give you encouragement to try this. And I won't go through all the background, but anyway, in front of about 15 people, with the finger pointing, he looked at me and he said, I walked over, he called me over, so I went over and he said, did you read it? Did you read it? Did you read it? I don't know what the hell he was talking about. Did you read it? Did you read it? Did you read it? I said, oh, read what? Read what? Did you read it? Did you read it? Did you read it? The finger's still going, right? And then it dawned on me, I'm dumb, but I'm not totally dumb. And he was talking about the Crawford opinion that had just come out about maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks before that, right? He's talking about Crawford. So I figured it out. So I immediately looked him in the eye and lied and said, yes, I read it. I had not read it, okay? But I read the head notes. I knew what it was all about, okay? But I had not read about Sir Walter Raleigh's trial and all that shit, okay? So I lied. And I said, oh, yeah, I said, and I knew it was a good opinion. And I said, oh, that was a wonderful, brilliant opinion. That was really good. Congratulations. And now the finger's still pointing. He says, I wrote that for you. And what you can do in cross-examination. So you go and do cross-examinations tomorrow.